undisputed champion.
Acknowledge me!
Roman Reigns has been the ultimate villain of professional wrestling for nearly 4 whole years now. It's a bit crazy to consider that he's now more associated with being a bad guy when WWE spent a painful 6 years trying to mold him into being the next big hero. Don't mistake crazy for surprising, because as far back as the dreaded Big Dog era went, there were a lot of fans who were vocal about wanting Roman Reigns to be the bad guy, and they knew he'd be good at it. One of the major reasons cited was due to his old clips of him that resurfaced from his days in developmental with FCW and NXT. The clips, although short, showed Roman Reigns playing a rich, arrogant bad guy who knew he was better than you and knew how to run his mouth and back it up. It was clear from a few minutes worth of footage that he was always much more comfortable in that role, but as you probably know, it was the decision of one man that prevented it from happening for so many years. For that one man, Roman Reigns needed to be the next John Cena and nothing else, which led him to getting backlash from audiences almost every week between early 2015 and late 2018, and also saw him get verbally roasted by John Cena, the man who he was supposed to succeed. But 2019 came along, and although WrestleMania 35 that year had incredible moments that saw Seth Rollins, Kofi Kingston, and Becky Lynch ascend to the mountaintop of professional wrestling, the year as a whole is considered one of the worst of the PG era. Roman Reigns was actually getting good reactions by this point because despite him still being the big dog that many hated, there was a big shift in perception due to his battle with leukemia. Even when his character wasn't making too much progress, fans saw Joe Anoa'i as the family man and couldn't help but cheer him on. At the same time, the end of 2019 was also the time when he was in a feud with Baron Corbin involving dog food. We can't point out to which exact moment it was, but something clearly shifted within Roman Reigns when he realized that it just wasn't working anymore and he needed to do something about it. That opportunity came during the COVID-19 pandemic when he made an unprecedented move of a main event superstar, pulling out of WrestleMania altogether. The decision was understandable because WrestleMania 36 was pre-taped in late March, right as the global lockdown was happening. Roman Reigns, being a leukemia survivor, had no idea what COVID-19 would bring, just like all of us in the world. Although he was a bit dismissive about pulling out due to COVID-19, he never fully denied it. But during that period, he probably came to a full realization that he needed to take his career into his own hands. He reportedly worked with Paul Heyman in creating the Tribal Chief character and story as we know it today, and Roman Reigns supposedly went to Vince McMahon with an ultimatum: turn him into a villain or he walks out of WWE and is done for good. By this point, Roman Reigns was already the #1 star of this generation and a bona fide locker room leader. Considering his position on the card, he was in a much better place to approach Vince McMahon than he was back in 2016 or 2017 when the peak Roman hatred was happening. In reality, he probably knew for a very long time that he was in the wrong role, but he was earning millions of dollars and being thrust into the #1 spot in the industry. How many of you can really claim that you would deny that if you were in the same position? Either way, our point here is that 2016 Roman Reigns and 2020 Roman Reigns were two totally different superstars. The decision paid off in a huge way, and he has fully cemented himself as one of the greatest to ever do it. Now that Roman Reigns' record-breaking run as Universal Champion is over, it seems like it's time for a change in character after nearly 4 long years. So why should it happen? And how can it happen? For one, let's take a classic example of someone Roman Reigns is familiar with, The Rock. We're not going to get into the whole story of The Rock, but for those who don't know, he was a failing babyface just like Roman Reigns was, except arguably worse. The only difference was that Vince McMahon showed zero hesitation into turning him into a villain in his second year in 1997, and from there he took off. So when it finally came time to become a full-fledged babyface again, The Rock hardly needed to change anything about his character. He simply diverted his insults, usually reserved for the audience, towards other villains. It was a minor tweak, and he turned it into one of the biggest box office draws that wrestling has ever seen. We're not saying that Roman Reigns is going to have the same ratings effect, but the days of fans going, "turn Roman heel," are long gone. We've already seen how it can play out, and we've already seen the peak of it. Change is necessary in professional wrestling, and considering that Roman Reigns has achieved quite literally everything bearing a Money in the Bank briefcase, there isn't too much left for him to do. But it does feel like if he were to become a big trash-talking good guy, it would be a full circle moment. Sure, it was great to have Roman Reigns getting respect from the fans for his inspiring return in 2019, but this is the type of positive response associated solely with character and storytelling, not circumstances in his personal life. So how does WWE go about doing it? For one, they need to make only minor tweaks to his character, a character that's going to require a lot of humbling. It can start somewhere around SummerSlam with Roman possibly losing to Cody Rhodes again. It makes sense that Roman Reigns will return with the bloodline, and of course, he's going to get a massive pop when he's finally back. It looks like WWE is already spinning the wheels of a possible bloodline dissension and civil war. With Roman gone for the time being, Solo Sikoa has taken command and replaced Jimmy Uso with Tama Tonga, a decision that was never confirmed to be one that Roman Reigns made. With Jacob Fatu also reportedly having signed with WWE and waiting to make his debut, it makes perfect sense for him to be a major figure in taking out Roman Reigns. There's a lot of stories that can be told here. We haven't even seen Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa yet, let alone Roman Reigns versus a dominant force like Jacob Fatu. So it could even be a big twist where it turns out that The Rock was the puppet master the whole time. We know The Rock isn't coming back anytime soon, and when he last left, he seemed more like we could see a Rock versus Cody Rhodes match than a Rock versus Roman match. But the money is always there to be made with The Rock versus Roman, and now that Cody's story is finally finished, they can have that dream match without any interruption or fan backlash whatsoever. It's gonna take some time to play out, which is fine because Roman doesn't appear every week anyway. And being a good guy doesn't mean he's gonna start making more appearances either. This is actually the only factor that could possibly be a detriment to Roman Reigns' babyface turn, the fact that he won't be around as often to capitalize on it. Either way, there are a lot of ways the story can be told, and perhaps it's one that can finally lead to the conclusion of the Bloodline story after all these years. One thing's for sure, it's going to be interesting to see how Roman Reigns transitions from being the biggest villain in the professional wrestling world to the biggest good guy. It's possible that it simply may not work out, and that he will prove to be a natural villain forever. But this time, it's worth a shot. After carrying WWE on his shoulders for years, after finishing what can only be described as a generational run, he deserves to get the love from WWE fans as a good guy again. Whether he succeeds or not, he has done enough to cement his legacy as one of the best to ever do it. Just like Corey Graves said at WrestleMania 40, it's because he's addicted to greatness. Thank you for watching.